A majority of the people that are watching or listening to this will be familiar with premium financing, but we can't assume that everybody is. So 60 seconds, what is premium financing?
Super simple. I would just say it's borrowing money to pay the premiums in a life insurance policy instead of pulling money out of your own pocket to pay those premiums. That's as simple as it gets.
Life Matters, a Penn Mutual podcast for financial professionals, bringing you life insurance insights from advanced sales experts and life insurance specialists. Grow a stronger practice today.
Welcome to Life Matters, a Penn Mutual podcast. I'm your host, Bill Bell, Vice President of Advanced Sales with Penn Mutual, and I am so pleased that you chose to join us here today. Now, in just a moment, I'm going to be bringing on Marc Schechter, who is the president of Schechter Wealth, which is a firm just outside of Detroit, Michigan, and we're going to talk all things premium financing and life insurance. One of the things that I wanted to share right at the top of the podcast is why you should be listening to this episode. There are a lot of misnomers in regards to premium financing out there. There are a lot of people being pitched premium financing where they're not really good candidates for premium financing. And sometimes premium financing is utilized where it shouldn't be. Marc's firm does a great job of working with their individual clients to make sure that if they are a good candidate for premium financing, that their plan is tailored for their needs. So you're going to hear a lot from Marc in regards to the planning that they do, why premium financing makes sense, where it's applicable, and so forth. But I wanted to just get that out there before we even bring on Marc. So why don't we bring on Marc, and then I'll be back on at the end to wrap up the show. Marc, thank you so much for joining us here on this episode of Life Matters, a Penn Mutual podcast. It's a true honor to have you here today.
Thank you, Bill, for having me. Excited to be with you this afternoon.
So let's get a little fluff out of the way right up front here. Tell our listeners who you are, what you do, where you are, and so forth.
Great. Marc Schechter. I am in Detroit running a financial advisory practice. We have 3 business units: investment advisory, life insurance, and we have a private capital division. I'm here today to talk about our insurance business predominantly.
Excellent. So I wanted to first start off with actually a more personal question. So your dad, Robert, was in the industry, was a great guy, innovator, somebody that was well respected. And obviously you've kind of kept his legacy going, but built the firm up to new heights. How do you think that you were able to take a kind of family run business and really grow it going forward, where so many financial professionals have such difficulty kind of bringing their kids in and kind of keeping the momentum with the business in our industry?
Great question, Bill. I have very clear answers. And I think it really is the dynamics of each of us as individuals. I think our personalities allowed this to happen. In some respects, I think, my dad was so willing and able to transfer, trust and, be comfortable with how I was choosing to take the business towards the future and bringing a vision that he made it easy. And I think a lot of fathers can't do that, including myself. I don't know if I will be as good of a transferer of the business as my father was. I think that I am more of a perfectionist than he was. I think I am probably more driven than he was, so maybe more demanding than he was. And but he was very comfortable at the phase of his life. He was 65 when I joined the business. I was 35. I had come off of a entrepreneurial career that I had started while I was in college. I built a business. And I just felt that at that time I could, leverage the tremendous reputation that he built and his tremendous technical skills, and help him build the business into something much bigger than it was. He was a tremendous professional. And I guess a lot of people would say he was entrepreneurial for that business, but I think of entrepreneurial as a much higher scale. So he had, I think, 8 or 10 people working with him, which is uncommon in the life insurance space. We now have 75 people working with us, and it's a whole different animal. But it was all started, and I couldn't have done it without the foundation and reputation that he allowed me to scale.
So it really, when you break it down, was the trust that your father had in you to kind of build the business that allowed you to come in and build it to new heights, is really what I'm getting out of that answer. And I think that that's a great piece of advice for people that are in that situation, that are bringing their kids into the business and financial services, that you have to have some trust in that next generation, or it's just not going to work.
Yeah, and his comfort that if it didn't work, it was okay. He was doing his thing, doing the way he wanted. He wanted to work until he passed, which he did, and he would have been okay continuing to have very nice growth and not explosive growth. And he figured, my mindset is, I'm always looking for that explosive growth. And if we didn't accomplish it, it would have been okay with him. And if we did, he would have been thrilled. He was thrilled to be a part of that.
All right. I got a couple of additional follow-up questions in regards to your firm. And you've already touched a little bit on both of them. One is, it's been a while since I've actually been physically in your firm. I think it's actually been about 15 years.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, it's been a long time. I went on your website and I just looked at the staff that you have now. And like you said, you have 75 people, a lot of really impressive individuals with a lot of credentials after their name. How is that a differentiator for your firm? And do you find it difficult kind of managing a firm of that size, even with that level of professionalism?
First of all, huge differentiator, huge investment. And do I find it difficult managing it? Not really, if you have the right people. And it makes it more fun for me, more enjoyable for me. I like being with people. I like brainstorming with people and sharing and getting more ideas from more people. And I just think it makes us better as a team. And in many ways, I can somewhat work less if I have a team that I trust to turn over my relationships to and my reputation to, and know that they are delivering something that I can be proud of. Otherwise, I'm stressing out about everything and feeling like I got to handle every, fire that comes up, and they come up, but I don't have time to do everything. So I invest my time in recruiting, training, building, mentoring, teams of people, and trying to build an organization that can then do that, down, 1 or 2 levels. So it's a trade-off of, where I probably spend less time with clients than I did 15 years ago, but more time with teammates who then help us broaden our reach and capabilities.
We're going to focus primarily today on life insurance and premium financing in conjunction to life insurance, but your firm does a whole lot more than that. Just from an elevator pitch perspective, can you give our listeners some insight in regards to what you do at Schechter Wealth?
Well, first of all, we, for 80 years, I've mentioned we're a 3rd generation firm. My father's uncle started, you mentioned my father. My father's uncle started with New York Life in 1939. He was the #1 agent at New York Life in 1959. My dad pulled him out of New York Life in 1976. They went independent, all that. So, and up until 2014, we did life insurance only for 70 years, something like that. When I got in the business in 2002. I was 35. And I started bringing my father to the parents of my wealthier friends and started working on estate plans with them. Often saw that people were not getting the greatest type of guidance on the investment side. And I thought there was an opportunity to bring investment advisory capabilities to my father's existing client base. And so investment advisory over the last 10 years has become a huge part of our growth. It's now probably half our business, and it started from here, and it's now here. Well, this has grown too, but this is growing much faster, the investment advisory. So in that line of business, we are very knowledgeable in income taxes and all kinds of alternative investments, hedge funds, private credit, private equity, real estate, and I always feel that our advisors are better insurance professionals because of our knowledge of the entire marketplace of asset class. So if I'm working with an insurance client who's got $150 million of real estate, I can understand the difference in cash flow between an industrial real estate and office and what we're facing and what cap rates are and when his loans are coming due on the real estate. And I know what hedge funds are in when they're telling me why they're in these, certain private equity funds. And I know the drawdown years, and I can help them with everything to better understand when insurance is and is not a fit. That's on the general advisory world. On the insurance world, we really have also probably around 12 years ago, by happenstance, a peer of mine in a study group had seen a strategy that we were utilizing from some of our clients and the educational materials we had put together to educate that client and the attorneys and advisors of that client. And they asked me if I would come work with them and one of their best friends and best clients and share revenue. And we did that. We had a great success. And that kicked off what I call our B2B2C business. We were B2C for 80 years. And now we're B2B2C for the last 12 years while continuing to do our B2C business. And so we are helping, I think 80% of our life insurance business now is joint work through other insurance professionals around the country. And I think what makes us unique, there's other groups that do revenue sharing with them, but often they are not advisors themselves with their own client base. They are solely focused on serving the advisor's needs, not the client's needs. So I think the fact that we sit in the same shoes as our advisor partners, makes us a valuable addition to their team. And for them, we do advanced planning, estate planning and design. We got 5 tax attorneys on staff. I know, Bill, you've worked with some of them. And we help advisors identify ways to help their clients. And we do it in both advanced design and premium financing as kind of the 2 different channels that advisors may choose to bring us in for.
All right. Well, that's a great segue to my next question. So a majority of the people that are watching or listening to this will be familiar with premium financing, but we can't assume that everybody is. So 60 seconds, what is premium financing?
Super simple. I would just say it's borrowing money to pay the premiums in a life insurance policy instead of pulling money out of your own pocket to pay those premiums. That's as simple as it gets.
It really is. Obviously, the actual implementation of that is a lot more complicated, but you're right. That's basically what it is. It's choosing to use a bank's money to pay the premiums for life insurance rather than your own personal assets.
Well, what's financing real estate? You ask what's financing premiums, what's financing real estate, and just people have been financing real estate for decades. I was going to say centuries. I don't know how long that goes back, but financing premiums has probably been only around for 25 years in people's minds, and a lot of people have never been exposed to it. And when you finance a building, you go invest in an apartment building, and you buy the building for $10 million, you can pay cash for it, and you can collect rents, and you can make that cap rate, and you're making 7, 8, 9% or something. But real estate people in general don't do that. They go out and they borrow money, and they try to borrow money at 5%. And if they're making 9% on the apartment building, then they're making, 15, 16% on their equity. This is the same exact concept. However, our apartment building is our life insurance policy. And we do not have the upside of an apartment building in a typical insurance policy. And I would say if you're talking about only IUL and whole life. We don't have the upside of an apartment building. In a VUL, you do have the upside of an apartment building. Also, we don't have the downside of an apartment building. So there are a lot of apartment buildings where the bank came back and took the building away because the value of the asset went down, the geography went down, and you've got risk. And that's why banks only lend, 50, 60 cents on the dollar when you go buy an apartment building. You buy a life insurance policy, the banks know that this is a much safer asset. They're not going to lose money on that asset. So they're lending at 95 cents on the dollar instead of 50 or 60, which, this is my first point when people say, oh, financing is risky. Financing life insurance is risky. I'm sorry. Well, it's much less risky than financing real estate or financing your stock portfolio or even financing your house. A lot of people are comfortable with a mortgage. A lot of people are not comfortable with a mortgage. And just brings me back to, not for everybody. And I'm a person who would take a mortgage on my house. And I would try to use at least up to the max deductible IRS amount in that administration or whatever we're allowed. And I'd like to have that deductible interest because I think I could go invest and outperform it. That's the clients who are attracted to this. That's why they're doing it.
All right. So I think probably from a carrier perspective, I've probably worked on more premium financing cases than just about anybody in the industry, just because you said it's been around for about 25 years. Mm-hmm. I've been in the industry for about 25 years and just the different spots I've been. I probably have the record, but
not the people who were in it before you and not the people who were in it after you.
That is correct. So over the years, I've kind of developed 4 truisms for premium financing. And I'd like to present them to you and just kind of get a quick reaction to each one. And I think that for those of us that have been involved in premium financing, they're pretty self-evident, but I think that some people are surprised when they hear some of these. So the first one is premium financing does not equal free life insurance.
Truism.
Absolute truism, correct?
Yes.
Why do you think people think that?
Because there's been people in our industry out there who have felt that they could make money by promoting it that way. They've been out there and our industry has suffered because of that.
All right, second one. Premium financing is not the reason that somebody should buy life insurance. And let me give a little more context. They should buy life insurance because they have a need for estate planning or business planning or whatever it might be. Premium financing is just a premium paying alternative for the right client. Is that a truism in your mind too?
Truism, yes.
All right, we're 2 for 2. All right, third one. Premium financing is not a reason for people to buy more life insurance than they need or can afford.
That's correct.
All right, 3 for 3.
I'm having trouble using the word truism because I don't think I've ever used that word before.
All right, truism. All right. And then the fourth one, and this is the one that messes a lot of people up. And so stick with me here, but a premium financing case where you need premium financing is not a premium financing case. And what I mean by that is if a client can't pay the premiums out of their own pocket, then they're not really a candidate for premium financing.
I'll slow you down on that one and maybe ask for clarifying question here. But when you say they can't pay it, I think if they don't have the balance sheet, then absolutely. But if they don't have the liquidity, then I would say falsism. So if they have assets that are not liquid, they got 5 houses and they got 2 businesses and they've got a highly appreciated stock portfolio, and they want, $100 million of life insurance. I don't know if that falls under your category of they can't pay it. They can't pay $4 million a year of premium, but they have the wherewithal to borrow $4 million a year.
So I'm glad that actually that was your answer, because I think that we're both speaking the same language there. The client could choose to liquidate assets to pay the premiums, so they can pay the premiums. They're just choosing to keep that money invested in their business or real estate portfolio or investment portfolio or whatever it may be. So I think that we're both on the same page there, that it's a truism, but there's some context needed. And that is where we really see the need for premium financing, is that you have somebody that has the ability to pay the premiums because they could liquidate assets, but they choose not to, and they want to make sure that they stay invested in wherever they've chosen to place their money.
Exactly.
All right. So would you say truism then?
I would say truism.
All right. So
Right.
4 for 4 on the truisms. All right. Very good. So I did want to get a little bit into interest rates here, because I think a lot of people have been talking about premium financing in this more normalized interest rate environment. So when I say normalized, you can't count kind of what happened between, say, 2020 and 2022 as a normal interest rate environment. You had rock bottom rates at that point here. I think if you look at historical averages, that the environment that we're currently in right now is probably a little more normalized when you kind of look at the long-term yield curve here. Does premium financing still work in this more normalized interest rate environment in your mind?
It absolutely does. Yes. And it may change, right? Interest rates can go against us. But long-term historical data has shown that insurance company crediting rates and/or IUL performance has outperformed these borrowing rates. And even in these higher rates, it was been challenging the past, not as much. About a year and a half ago, rates started coming back down again. The 10 years now at 4.3, but it had gotten up there to, it was 5.4, 5.6. People paying spreads should be paying spreads, less than 2. I think from 1.1 to 2, we're, during the most challenging times of the last decade in premium financing, clients may have been paying 7.4 or something like that. However, the IULs, they were pretty much hitting caps, except for 22. We had a lot of great years. So we've been able to maintain the spreads, even in the higher interest rates, but they are much more normalized. And Bill, I was just pulling up my phone because I constantly look at the 10-year, which is my barometer of right now. Is it down 1% today? We're at 4.27, and we can go kind of borrow longer term money, is sometimes even cheaper than shorter term money. So we can use collars, caps, and swaps to lock in better rates. So right now, though, we're at 4.2 here. I think we're coming down. If you look at forward LIBOR curves, I think I just looked at it 2 days ago, and I think it was anticipating, down to 3.8 or something like that in the next 8 months. That's what I'm watching. Is I feel like as long as carriers are being fair with their crediting rates and dividend rates and cap rates and all of that, then this will always be viable. And now I also would say that it's less about, I just started sharing a kind of the mindset of the policy outperforming the interest, which really is not the driver. The driver is the client outperforming the interest, right? Because if that client needs $100 million life insurance, it's either cash or financing. Doesn't matter whether the policy is generating 4 or 7% return, that year or over 10 years or 30 years. So it just comes down to, what is that individual doing in their business? What are they doing in their investments? And if they want to go invest in, a portfolio of diversified private credit loans and generate 8 to 12%, that may be their prerogative.
So you're obviously a professional in this. You have a lot of experience. What do you say to financial professionals that bring you these pure arbitrage types of arrangements where people are only looking at just the interest rate that's being charged by the bank versus the crediting and kind of the magic money machine that is premium financing? And typically we see these with some IUL policies, but you and I both know that they don't work. And so what do you tell people about that?
So I'll tell you about, probably have not seen that since the really low interest rate years, from whatever, 19 to 23 or 22 or something like that. So I haven't seen that. And in those times, I did feel that there was opportunity if they can be in the long term, and they were prepared to pay off the loans if interest rates rose. But I felt them, this spread's not, you can't rely on this spread forever. It's high right now, but look at the last 30 years, it's not as high. There's always been a positive spread. It might have got a little negative a year and a half ago, but then you add in insurance charges, and if you didn't want the insurance anyways, it's not of value to you, then, you just got to be ready to pay off in higher interest rate environments.
All right. One last premium financing related question. Who in your mind is the best candidate for a premium financing arrangement?
We have the best experience with people who I would say are very comfortable with leverage, but I think there's another category of people. There's people who really love leverage. There's one thing to be comfortable with it, another thing to love it. And I was sitting in an office in New York, and a private equity guy I never thought of it that way, but he said to me, I love leverage. I will leverage as much as I can get. I'm buying that company. If I can buy them with 95% leverage and instead of 85, I'm going to do it if I can use. And so if you're really trying to isolate the best candidate, someone who loves leverage, the next best is they're comfortable with leverage. And I would say never try to talk to anybody who doesn't like leverage, right? They don't have a mortgage on their house. Don't even talk to them about it. They're not going to be comfortable. They're not going to sleep at night if they have debt. So I find those typically real estate folks, private equity folks, use leverage, understand it. They understand the risks of it. They understand how long their terms can be. They understand what comes up when the 10-year loan is gone and they got to refinance. And those are best candidates.
Excellent. Obviously, you have a choice of a number of different great life insurance carriers to work with. What do you like about working with Penn Mutual?
First thing that comes to mind is trust. I've been working with you guys now for 14 years. I never knew anything about Penn Mutual before 2012 and have gotten a good feel of I feel like the leadership is very committed to the policyholder and doing the right thing. And that's probably the largest reason. Now, if the products weren't competitive, then I don't care how much you care about the client. If the policy is not competitive, we're not going to put our clients there. For the most part, the products that we've seen the last 14 years have been very competitive, and they don't have to be number one, but they got to be, for us, I think, in the top 3 or 4 out of 15 that we're looking at. And they have met both those requirements from us. So we don't think about comp at all. I don't even know where you guys are on a comp grid comparison. And those are the 2 reasons.
All right, terrific. So we like to end these podcasts with a couple of fun questions to give a little more context. So you live in the suburbs of Detroit. As you may or may not know, I host a show for Penn Mutual on our YouTube channel called Bites, Sites, and Life Insurance Insights, which is kind of like an Anthony Bourdain type of show where I go around the country, interview people over a meal. And I like to kind of do like the signature food of an individual area. So if I was coming to Detroit to sit down and interview Marc Schechter for Bites, Sites, and Life Insurance Insights, what would we be eating?
If you were not on a diet and health was not an issue, and I was going back to the days when I ate this all the time, there's no question, but in Detroit, we have these chili hot dogs that are called Coney Island. Nothing to do with the Coney Island. I don't know, not Coney Island in New York, but there's a type of chili that if you grew up in Detroit, it's just built a love for that taste. Everybody knows about Coney Islands in Detroit. That's where We both got the square deep dish pizza of Buddy's. That's a famous Detroit cuisine.
So it's funny because I thought when I wrote that question out that you were either going to say the Coney's or the square pan pizza.
Wow.
So I knew it would be one of those two.
Have you had either?
I've had both, and they're both delicious. So yeah, they're wonderful.
Might treat next time you're here, Bill.
Okay, I'll take you up on that. Now, I know you're a football guy. I see the maize and blue behind you. I know you're a big Michigan guy, but you are a Detroit sports fan, as my understanding is. Is it better for the city of Detroit if the Lions are horrible or if they're good like they were last year, but then Jared Goff rips their heart out at the end of the day?
Oh, there's no question. Last year was way better for the city of Detroit than the prior 40. No. Actually, 2 years ago was good. These last 3 years have been better than the prior 60. But no question, there's an energy, there's excitement, there's more activity downtown, hotels packed, First of all, they still sell out every game, whether they're horrible or they're great. But the energy around the city throughout the football season is something that I never had growing up. My kids never had it growing up. So it's fun seeing it now.
Thank you so much for joining us here today. Great conversation. Really appreciate the insights. Looking forward to having you on the show again at some point here in the future. Again, thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Good to see you.
Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss an update.